Hey guys, CJ here at PBX How To's, and today I'm going to show you how to configure the standard local survivability, or also known as SLS, for the H248 type gateways. This does not include the G650, and this does not include the G700s, as SLS isn't obviously built on those systems, but it is on the 430, 450, 350, and 250, I believe. Just look in the documentation under H248 gateways, and you can see which ones it works on. But I'm going to show you quick and dirty how to set this up, and some things I want you to take note of. You obviously see I'm not in the CM at all. I'm going to show you this straight out of the CLI, or command line interface. This is a very in-depth document. I'll actually put a link to it in the description, as well as a link to a document I created, kind of a cheat sheet on setting up SLS, quick and dirty, like I said. And the way I'm going to show you this is an analog-based solution. So that is, I have an MM711, which is a combo card, a combo analog card, which means it supports analog trunks and analog stations. I'm going to show you how to set up an IP telephone. But the rest of the stuff, you got to look at the documentation and look at it step by step, because trust me, it does work. I've tested it. I've done it on BRIs, PRIs, analogs, and IP. So I know it works for sure. But I'm going to show you in an analog based, just to respect the time, because if I went down the road of doing PRI, this would be like a 2-hour-long video. And maybe one day I will do a 2-hour-long video. Anyway, so you got to have access to your services port on the gateway itself and or into your network, right? So I'm just using the services port for this exercise. Let me open this up a little bit so you can see it. Okay, I'm going to log in as root. You have to have root access into the system. And you can see right as you log in, Survivable Call Engine is disabled, or SLS is disabled. You can see this gateway is not communicating with the CM, hence the question marks right here. Okay, that tells you this gateway cannot talk back to, talk back. I'm going to talk back to you. All right, sorry. It can't talk back to the CM, but we're going to do that. We're going to set that up. So if you do show SLS, it'll actually tell you SLS is disabled. All right. So if I go set SLS enable, I can turn it on, right? So I do show SLS. How about I type it right? Oh my gosh! There we go. SLS is enabled, but that doesn't mean anything. SLS, you have to reset the gateway for it to actually go in and check and make sure all your provisioning is done correctly. There's a certain number or certain number of things that you have to do minimum for SLS to actually go active, okay? And I'm going to show you those minimums using my little job aid. All right, so first thing you want to do is you want to set your system name, and that's just a good practice. We'll call this G430 SLS. All right, so system name is set, so I do show system name. Oh. My bad. God, I can't even type today. What is my problem? Show system. You can see right there. There's the system name, G430 SLS. Okay, so we know that's good there. Once you have the name set, it's a good idea to set your location, your contact info, but you don't have to. I'm just, good best practice, if you will. When you do gateways, you want to make sure you have contact information, location information, etc., etc. All right, so I set the system name, and the next thing I want to do is I want to set the, I need to go into SLS mode. And the way you do that is you simply type SLS, okay? So now I'm in SLS mode. I'm going to bring this up just a little bit so you can actually see it. All right, I'm in SLS mode. And my Avast security report, go away. I know what secure I am. All right, here we go. All right, I'm in SLS mode, and the way you can tell is the difference is super-SLS. You know you're in SLS mode. And if you do set, question mark, you can see the things that you can set in your SLS, okay? So the first thing we want to do is we want to set PIM lockout to yes. And what this does is if you happen to have PIM, or the provisioning tool that downloads your stuff from your CM automatically and updates all your gateways, you want to make sure that it's disabled when you're setting this. Otherwise, it's going to overwrite your records and, all that good stuff, right? Next thing, you want to set your max IP registrations. I'm going to do this one to 150 because this is a G430. All right, so we want to do set date format. And the format has to be in this kind of format like what I'm doing right now, month, year. Okay, so that way you know your date is format is set. And you remember, guys, I'm showing you the minimum things you have to do for SLS to work properly. And then I'll talk about how you can tell it's working, how you can tell it's enabled just by picking up a phone. All right, so after you set the date, the next thing you want to do is you want to set your IP codec set. This one, I think I do, actually, if you do question mark after every command, it's going to give you, you know, what it is. So if I do set date format question mark, it tells you here are the formats that are available to you. Same with any of the others. All right, so you can't really get stuck as long as you do the question mark. Okay, so we're going to do set IP codec set, and I tabbed, by the way. I just type a little bit of the command and hit tab. It'll auto fill the rest of your command as long as that's the only command available. So we're going to do G711 MuLaw for this case, but you could do G711A, G711 Mu. Those are your options available to you. Okay, so A-Law and MuLaw. All right, so G711 Mu is set. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to set our slot configs, and the way you find that out is you do show mg list config. All right. Oh, and you see why it didn't work? Because I'm in SLS. So if I hit exit, remember, I don't lose any of my stuff because you have to actually, we're in the running config right now. And if I reset, yeah, I would lose everything because I didn't copy everything from my running config to my startup config. So we're going to do show mg list config. And you can see I have an analog MM711 in slot V2. Okay. So definitely, by the way, reference your documents to make sure when you do go through setting this up, make sure you're at your minimum vintages. All the minimum vintages of your firmwares are at the minimums required for SLS to work, okay? Just special note there. All right, so now I'm going to go back into SLS, and I'm going to set my slot config. So my slot config is the what slot number I'm going to have it. So I'm going to say V2, because you know, just match it where it is, but you can set it to whatever. But just make sure you match what's in your system. That way you don't get confused when you start setting these things up. And we're going to say MM711. All right, so we're going to do show. I don't know why I can't type show config tonight. So you can see there, when I do show slot config, you can see that I set up slot V2 to be my MM711. And the way an MM711 is, there's 8 ports on it, so it'd be slot V 2, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, and through 0, 8. All right, so there you go. That's how you do the slot configs. Now, the next thing you want to do is set up your feature access codes. Just like you have in your PBX, you want to do the same thing here, right? So if I do question mark, it's going to show you what options you can do. ARS1, ARS2, hold, contact open, contact close, and contact pulse. All right, reference the documentation if you want to know anything about the contact features, but obviously the ARS, ARS2, and hold are ones that are fairly important to use. So we're going to see set, let me back up, FAC, ARS1 to be 9, and we want to do set ARS, whoops, FAC ARS2 to be 8. We want to do set FAC hold to be, I don't know, we'll make it star 30. I don't know, just make it up. All right, so show FAC. Remember, you can show everything if you're in SLS. You can show whatever configs you did, okay? So you can see that they actually took. All right? So the next thing you want to do after you set your feature access code, you want to set up your stations. All right, so the one thing you want to do is you want to type station, and this takes you into station programming. But if you do question mark, it's actually going to tell you what you need to do. All right, so we're going to say station, and we're going to say 1313, and it's going to be analog. All right, now you can see as soon as you set it, it's going to say, hey, you have to add the port. And the way you add the port is by doing set port. And you can see your prompt changed to the station you're actually programming. All right, so the way you want to do this for every single station is you have, once you set your station, you have to set the port. So we're going to say port V20, actually I'm going to do V08, or V208, okay? So you can say that's done. You can see right there, done. All right, set port. The next thing is you're going to do set core, and I'm going to type unrestricted. And this is, again, best practice. It's based on your security that you have with your phone system and what you want your callers to be able to call when they're in standard local survivability. I give everybody unrestricted because usually when your network's down, they're trying to call everybody to figure out what's going on, okay? But you could set it to whatever you want. There's all different kinds. There's unrestricted, internal, external, local, things like that. But again, reference documentation for detailed information on the core because this has to match what's matched in your CM. All right, but remember, I haven't configured a CM, and we're going to test to see if this works. Next thing, we're going to say, is this a trunk destination? Meaning, can this station take calls from an internal trunk or from your trunks that you have set up? And you could say yes or no. We're going to say yes on this one, and then I'm going to set a name. Remember, we're still on station 1313, CJ PBX How To's. And if I do show, you can see everything I did. Here's the station. Here's the analog type. Here's the port I have it on. It's an unrestricted core. It is a trunk destination. It has a flash hook. And here's the name. Okay, so there you go. To get out of the station, you just type exit. All right, now you're back at the SLS. And if you want to add another station, you can say station, 1314 IP, and then you can go through, setting up everything because you're in your station, right? And you got to set password, 1 2 3 4 5, and then exit. All right, so that way you set your IP telephone as well. Okay, so but again, reference the documentation for all different types of set types, but essentially know that IP telephones are the only phones that require a set password. DCP and analog phones don't require that, all right? So that way you can get going. All right, so next thing you want to do is you want to do your trunk programming. And the way you do this is you type trunk, and I type a number, and we'll just call it 13, and we're going to call it a loop start, okay? So there. Now you've set up your trunk group, as you can see. Once you've added it, it says now we're in trunk group 13. Now you have to configure it. Okay. So the next thing you have to do is set a TAC or trunk access code, and we're going to give this one. We'll just say #13. Okay. That's the trunk access code for this. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to set the dial type, and the dial type is DTMF because this is the loop start trunk. Okay. It's 99% of the time DTMF. If you're doing a PRI, there's all kinds of configuration that you have to do for a PRI. You have to set up the signaling group. You have to set up all your trunks, and again, that's why I didn't do a PRI because it would take this video a long time to show you how to do that. But if you want to see how to do that in SLS, maybe I'll do a different series on SLS alone by itself and show you all different types of trunk types. Okay, but that's if you guys want to see it. So we're going to say DTMF. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a port. So we're going to say add port V201 because I'm using a combo card. Okay, now we know that's done. You want to set the busy disconnection, and I'm going to say yes. This basically tells the trunk detect whether there's a busy signal and just doesn't allow the phone to use it. The next thing is we're going to say incoming destination 1313. This says anytime that trunk is accessed, call that extension 1313, okay? So that way you can do that. All right, next thing, we're going to set the name of this trunk, and we're going to call it, we'll call it analog loop trunk, I'll spell it right, main, okay? And if I type show, you can see everything that I programmed on that trunk, okay? So now we know that the station has been added, the slot cards have been added, the loop start trunk has been added. The ports have been added. And I'm still in the trunk, so I can say set port V202. Why not? I'm in trunk. What did I do? Oh, add port. My bad. Add port V202. Add port, see, 203. Show. You can see those ports I just added right here. Okay? So that's the trunk. Now you have to set up the dial patterns, and the way you do that is you say dial pattern, and oops, I'm sorry, I'm still in the trunk. I gotta get out of it. All right, there you go. Dial pattern, and let's say I want to call our DC or Washington DC. This gateway's in DC, and they need to be able to make calls. All right, so we're gonna say dial pattern 202. Now we're in dial pattern 202's programming set, and the way you do this is you got to do set type. And we can do question mark, and it'll show you the different types that you have available to you, okay? So we're going to do set type, say HNPA. So this is a home national prefix, or MPA. All right, set max length. Always set the max length first. We say 10. Set min length 10. Set TG number, which is the trunk group number, and we say 13, because as you can see up here, trunk group 13 is the one I want to have access to when they dial these numbers. And then set deny, we want to say no, whether this is allowed or not to route on trunk. Whoops, I'm sorry. Yeah, no. All right, set deny no. We don't want any of this. We don't want 202 to be denied on that trunk group. All right, and you repeat this for every dial pattern. So you make sure you can type show, and it'll show you the dial pattern that you have. If I do exit and I do show dial pattern, it's going to show you all the dial patterns I've added. All right, so if I say dial pattern 911, all right, now I'm in 911. I want to set this up for 911. Okay, we're going to go through the same steps that I showed you. Set type, but this time it's emergency. Okay, and what that does, it basically says don't wait for any more digits. Just dial the second you get the last one. Right? If they dial 911, boom, it goes out right away. It bypasses everything. It just says make the call out. Set max 3. Set min 3, and set TG number 13. Set deny no, and there you go. If I type exit and show dial, there's my two ARS. These are ARS settings is really what these are, guys. Dial pattern is also known as ARS. These are all your ARS entries. So again, in survivable local survivability, you want to make sure you put in as many ARS patterns as you need, but make sure you put in what you need. Put in what you need. Because again, it means the system's down and people are going to need to start calling things on an emergency basis, whatever the case may be. All right, so I could say, dial pattern 1 for a dial pattern of 1, and then I say set type is FNPA, set max length 11, set min 11, set TG 13, set deny equals no, right? So exit, show dial. And guys, I'm flying through this because there's so much to do, but I wanted you to see how you do those, okay? And there they are. They tell you what trunk they go out on. If you need to insert any digits, there's an additional command that allows you to insert digits on those or to delete digits. So you can say anytime someone dials 911, delete 3 and insert whatever you want, right? So 911 was probably a bad choice, but you get my point, right? So you can do everything that you can do in a trunk group that you can do right here, okay? So next thing you need to do, and if you mess up on dial patterns, all you have to do is do clear dial pattern, and it will tell you which dial pattern do you want to clear out. So you can clear out which one if you messed up on one, okay? All right, so that's it. You have it set up for SLS to be ready, and the way you finish this is you want to you need to exit out of SLS and get you back to the main prompt, and you want to make sure SLS is disabled, and then set SLS enabled. This pushes all the things you just did and puts them active. All right. Next thing you want to do is you want to copy your running config to your startup config. Okay. That way, all those changes you just did are saved into the system. All right. You have to make sure you do that. Otherwise, if the system resets or reboots, you just lost all those changes you just did. Okay. So once you do this, once it's saved in here, the next thing you want to do is you want to unplug your network connection. All right. You want to unplug it and then wait a few minutes. Show fault. Show faults. Okay. You can see I've lost sync. I've lost my H248. It's going to go in and tell you, hey, something's up because I can't see anything. I can't see back to the main system. All right. So as soon as SLS kicks in, this prompt is going to change to a G430-SLS. Okay, so we're going to do show faults. This takes a couple minutes because it's got to go in and make sure all your registrations and everything you did are correct, and then it will set that. But when this comes back to SLS, I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so my gateway booted back up, and as you can see, it is in SLS mode. And what you want to do at this point is you want to verify it's working by picking up a phone. If you pick up a phone and you don't get dial tone, but you get a higher pitched tone, kind of like a, you know, beep. I don't want to sound exactly like that, but you get my point. It's not going to be dial tone. It's going to be a different tone. That kind of is the audible note that you're in SLS mode. The other way you can find out is test an incoming call. Make sure it gets to that incoming destination that you set in SLS, as well as if you're in the gateway locally and you're in the service report or you can get to it somehow. You can see, as you can see here on the screen, that the G430-SLS is there, okay? So that's it, guys. That's how you set up SLS. Obviously, if you have any questions on this, let me know. If you have any questions on how to program something specific in SLS, please let me know in the comments or drop me a message. You guys can also email me at cj@pbxhowtos.com if you want to drop me an email. But I suggest you put comments on the video or ask some questions on Facebook. Don't forget, facebook.com/pbxhowtos, and I will answer them there so everybody can get the benefit of the answer to the questions because they may have the same questions. Okay? All right, guys. Thanks for watching. I will talk to y'all later. Have a good night. Bye.